January 20th, President Donald Trump issues an executive order stating the United States foreign aid industry and bureaucracy are not aligned with American interests, and in many cases, antithetical to American values. January 24th, in accordance with the executive order, all USAID programs were suspended by the Secretary of State, including the funds already obligated and dispersed.
The disinformation campaign begins.
January 28th, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt claims the Department of Government Efficiency, better known as DOGE, has discovered the U.S. government spent $50 million to ship condoms to Gaza.
There was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza.
That same day, DOGE leader Elon Musk tweets that the money was more likely going into the pockets of the terrorist group Hamas.
Repeat the lie.
January 29th, overnight, the 50 million condoms to Gaza story had been debunked by nearly every fact checker in the universe.
Some of the things that I say will be incorrect.
The truth was clear. No condoms had been sent to Gaza, Palestine, but contraceptive aid, including some condoms, had been sent to Gaza, Mozambique to prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS. The president must have been aware that this information was inaccurate, yet 24 hours later, he takes to the microphone and amplifies the lie.
$50 million being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas.
All within the state. Nothing outside the state. Nothing against the state.
February 1st, the pseudo-free speech crusader Elon Musk shuts down the USAID website. The website contains spending breakdowns, performance reports, program evaluations, budget justifications, links to partners and projects, and pictures of children who aren't sick and dying thanks to foreign aid. By censoring the agency, Musk robbed the USAID of its ability to publicly defend itself.
We will erase the past and create a new one.
After silencing his target, Elon went on the attack with tweets claiming USAID was a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America. He implied USAID is responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic.
USAID is a criminal organization. Time for it to die.
Overseas USAID personnel were told to stop valuable and often life-saving work. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of food sitting on ships and in warehouses began to rot. Clinics across the poverty-stricken world shut down. February 3rd, President Trump doubles the lie.
Think of it, $100 million on condoms to Hamas. Condoms to Hamas.
If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it.
Naturally, the MAGA media arm was hard at work selling the lies coming from the White House.
$50 million that was slated to go to the Gaza Strip to pay for condoms.
Condoms to Hamas.
$50 million for condoms in Gaza.
Condoms to Gaza?
We don't want $50 million going towards condoms.
Condoms in Hamas's hands.
Condoms. Does everybody know what a condom is?
Even weeks later, on February 21st, the president is spreading the lie and maximizing the outrage.
$50 million plus another $50 million for condoms for Hamas.
February 12th, CBS News senior White House reporter Jennifer Jacobs asks Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt if material evidence will be provided to back up fraud claims that had been made the day before by Musk.
We're just wondering if there's some proof, evidence. Is the White House willing to share evidence of those fraud claims?
Karoline's answer, what was said yesterday is what you get.
There's great transparency.
The day before, standing in the Oval Office, Elon Musk said that DOGE could not be more transparent.
So all of our actions are maximally transparent.
On the official DOGE website, there is a list of what the agency and the White House are calling receipts.
I love to bring the receipts.
From these receipts, we get an award ID number, which we then plug into the website usaspending.gov or foreignassistance.gov. The information on these websites is a brief breakdown of the contract's financials and a 1 to 2 sentence description, which often does not describe much. Here's a contract for $18 million, and the description is epic ideas, leaving the audience with very little information about what the contract was for and why it is considered waste, fraud, and abuse. This is where DOGE checks out. They're done describing what's going on. But thanks to the USAID website being trapped in the archives of the internet, we can get a snapshot of what Elon didn't want us to see, gaining a little more clarity, but not much. In the archived webpage, we find fact sheets and information pages, like this one that tells us thanks to the USAID, more than 1.9 million children under 5 gained access to basic health services in an 11-month period from 2022 to 2023. But the archives are far from perfect, and archive hunting is difficult, and a major setback we found was that the links to the PDF versions of full detailed reports only returned the first page, so we couldn't dig in. What we could conclude is that when Elon Musk said,
We actually are trying to be as transparent as possible.
what he really meant is we are hiding what these contracts are for and aren't providing any evidence of waste, fraud, or abuse.
To keep you is no benefit. To destroy you is no loss.
February 10th, the Office of the Inspector General releases a report identifying a negative consequence of putting USAID employees on administrative leave. The Inspector General's office found that $8.2 billion had been left unprotected and was now at risk of falling into the hands of terrorist groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, and Ansar Allah. The following day, the Inspector General, Paul Martin, was fired for his negativity, and his staff was reportedly denied access to their offices.
If they were serious about stopping waste, fraud, and abuse, they would have worked with the OIG.
That's correct. The USAID Office of the Inspector General puts the USAID through dozens of audits every year, and they investigate crimes like fraud and theft. Investigations that often lead to convictions and punishment. Now compare the OIG website to the DOGE website. The OIG website, which surprisingly is still live, has a long list of criminal activity that the office has stopped. In each case, the crime is detailed and the offender is named. The crimes range from the small, like this guy who was looking at porn and talking to prostitutes on his government phone, to the moderate, like this ding-dong who was hired to recycle old government computers in a very specific way, but instead he sold them to a second-hand electronics store for some quick cash, to major theft, like Mahmoud al-Hafyan, former head of a Syrian NGO office who diverted $9 million worth of food kits from refugees to terrorist organization Al-Nusra Front. Then there are cases of fraud, like when Commonics International was fined $3.1 million after it was discovered they were overcharging the USAID to ship commodities through Nigeria. Then we have the case of Carlina Graham, who worked for a USAID and State Department funded nonprofit called World Learning. During her time with World Learning, Carlina stole $419,000 using the company credit card. The OIG sniffed her out and she pled guilty to wire fraud and was sentenced to 4 years of probation and was ordered to pay back all $419,000.
Unlike others, when the OIG catches someone stealing from American taxpayers, they make them pay the money back.
The OIG page also has detailed reports of spending and personnel recommendations, many of which are minor tweaks to programs that already run well. In other words, it has what you would expect to find in the records of an oversight agency.
Can we trust that Musk and Trump understand the programs they are cutting?
No, we cannot. The president said everything DOGE does is approved by him.
Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval.
Days later, he explains how deeply he dives into the reports about these programs before he authorizes termination.
Yeah.
And you can look at the title and you say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And the public gets it.
He judges them by the name. Then, on February 18th, the president demonstrated his lack of knowledge when he read off a list of canceled contracts. Tell me if this sounds like he knows what these contracts are for and the downstream impacts of canceling them. Listen to him eat his way through this title.
It's called Environmental, Social, and Governance, Investments in Africa, and Mobilize Private Sector Resources.
He has never reviewed this contract.
He gives away his ignorance when he lists the next contract.
It's nice, $25 million going to Colombia for something that nobody ever heard of.
He thinks that nobody's heard of it because he's never heard of it. He rambles through a couple more before finally finding some words that he understands.
$42 million for Johns Hopkins, great place to research and drive social and behavior change in Uganda.
Hey, great place, that Johns Hopkins. Then on the very next item, he reverts back to admitting he doesn't know what is being cut.
$70 million for a center at Purdue to research university-sourced, evidence-based solutions to developmental challenges. I mean, these are massive numbers on things that nobody ever heard about.
Nobody ever heard of them. If we skip ahead a few contracts, he gets to the point of this production. He wants everyone to believe that the USAID is completely corrupt.
Listen to these numbers. This is all fraud.
Even though he has just admitted that he's never heard of some of these programs, and it's clear he doesn't understand the scope or value of any of them, he's labeled these programs fraud.
But he said Johns Hopkins was a great place.
That was 60 seconds ago. Now he's accusing them of defrauding the United States government out of $42 million.
Is Elon Musk smart and trustworthy?
I'm going to give 2 examples of Elon demonstrating behavior that should make everyone wonder what the hell's with this guy. But first, a reminder that there are 2 videos on the Globalist YouTube channel where we have already debunked several Elon lies, especially lies told in support of Donald J. Trump for president. A link to one of the videos should be appearing in the corner now.
Item 1. Cheating at video games.
Elon would regularly brag about being a high-ranking international player in the video games Diablo 4 and Path of Exile 2. He posted several videos on Twitter of his character tearing it up in these games. Not long after all this bragging, Elon humiliated himself when he streamed himself playing Path of Exile 2. The serious gamers who had tuned in to watch the alleged 12th best player in the world were underwhelmed with Elon's abilities. Video game circles on social media quickly began to fill up lists of rookie mistakes that Elon was making. Here's what YouTube gamer Quinn69TV thought about the gameplay.
Dude, what is he doing? Dude, what is he doing with the mapping up? He's dragging them over, bro. What? Oh, dude, he's dragging the maps over. He's dragging, bro. It's Joe Biden playing. What the fuck?
Not long after Elon's session, the consensus among real gamers was that Elon was a fake who hires people to play on his account.
Stop lying! How could you do this to me? You're the chosen one, Elon! You were the chosen one!
Yeah, your Neuralink.
In fact, Elon demonstrating his profound lack of ability was such strong evidence against him that the egomaniac Musk had to admit the truth. And of course, his admission came with the crybaby's excuse that other players cheat too.
Item 2. He doesn't pay his bets.
In early 2020, just as the reality of the COVID-19 pandemic was setting in, Elon bet his friend Sam Harris $1 million that the number of COVID cases in the United States would be less than 35,000. Elon lost the bet in just a few days. Currently, the United States has had over 100 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and roughly 1.2 million deaths. Meaning that with all the information that was coming out at the time, Elon made probably the dumbest prediction of anyone on planet fucking Earth, missing his guests by 4 orders of magnitude. Predictably, Elon never paid up the $1 million that was meant to go to charity.
He's a filthy little welcher.
That's right. He took the coward's way out and ended his friendship with Sam Harris instead. So he cheats at video games and brags about it. He was a pandemic denier and he doesn't pay his bets. What the hell's with this guy?
The great masses of the people will more easily fall victim to a big lie than to a small one.
Are all those things you just mentioned fraud, or are they waste, or are they just contrary to the president's policy?
Repeat the lie. Fraud.
All of this fraud, abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. I think there's a lot of kickback here. I see a lot of kickback here.
There's a lot of kickback.
But the USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt. It's incompetent and it's really corrupt. Fraud.
Fraudulent.
Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse.
As of the making of this video, not a single person or non-governmental organization has been indicted for fraud.
What about foreign crime rings stealing $200 billion a year from entitlements?
But a bunch of the fraud rings that are operating in the United States and taking advantage of the federal government, especially in the entitlements programs, are actually foreign fraud rings. They're operating in other countries and actually exporting money to other countries.
Mr. Musk,
and this is big numbers, talking about $100 to $200 billion a year.
Another outrageous claim that comes without evidence. And I would like to lay down the gauntlet on this one. If DOGE and the president do not catch the criminals who have been stealing over $100 billion from the United States every year and name them, charge them, and punish them, recoup whatever money there is to recoup, then these two are ineffective, impotent men who are unable to wield the power of their office.
The USAID does valuable work.
Leaked intra-office memos between the federal government's foremost experts on global health and Secretary of State Marco Rubio detail the consequences of cutting foreign aid. The list includes an increase of approximately 400,000 tuberculosis cases. There will also be 12 to 18 million more cases of malaria, a disease that is most lethal in children under 5. This increase in cases will also lead to approximately 166,000 more deaths from malaria. As many as 1 million children will not be treated for severe acute malnutrition, and in the next decade, 200,000 more children will be paralyzed by polio.
What if you're a heartless skunk who doesn't care about people dying in other countries?
An increase in tuberculosis means an increase in drug-resistant tuberculosis cases in America. Given that each case of drug-resistant tuberculosis costs $500,000 to treat, the increase will cost Americans millions of dollars.
And human trafficking.
For instance, hundreds of thousands of people have been kidnapped by Chinese crime syndicates and trafficked to scam compounds in Myanmar and Cambodia. Once at the compounds, the victims are forced to run pig butchering scams where they pretend to be wealthy young people with insider information about cryptocurrency markets. In 2023, pig butchering scams stole $4 billion from American citizens. And I think more importantly, as a nation, America is strongly against human trafficking, or at the very least, we are in the movies and leading up to elections. Since the funding freeze, there have already been reports of victims who have escaped imprisonment but were forced to return to the compounds to be further exploited because they had no money to get home and no options.
Soft power is cheap.
Soft power is when a rich country like the US gives money to developing countries in order to expand and strengthen said rich country's sphere of influence. Most wealthy countries utilize soft power because the return on the investment is so high. One such country is our economic rival, China. After the United States announced its plan to cut foreign aid, China was quick to announce plans to fill the voids we are leaving behind.
A matter of national security.
The country of Mozambique has been in conflict with ISIS affiliate Al-Shabaab for nearly a decade. In 2023, Mozambique security forces beat back the terrorist group, reclaiming the northern districts of Palma and Mocimboa de Praia and killing Al-Shabaab leader Mohamed Machude Omar. These successes would not have been possible without the aid of the US and the EU.
Condoms and circumcisions win wars.
That's true, and don't leave out safe female contraceptive methods. An estimated 2.4 million people in Mozambique have HIV, and roughly 1 in 53 babies born in the country will test positive for HIV before the age of 12 weeks, meaning that contraception prevents babies from being born with HIV, and circumcisions and condoms prevent the spread of AIDS. In strengthening the people of Mozambique, we cheaply and effectively promote an ally in the fight against the spread of terrorist groups.
Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
Another program that has been ridiculed as fraud or waste is Sesame Street in Iraq. This contract didn't directly fund the TV show called Alan Sim, but it did fund an early childhood development program in Iraq that uses the show to educate children in war zones. Much like the American version, the Arabic version of Sesame Street teaches kids about mutual respect, inclusion, counting, dealing with emotions, and the alphabet. Possibly because the stated goal of the program has the word inclusion in it, pampered weirdos like Donald Trump Jr. see this as waste. This program serves kids who are shell-shocked, who have serious emotional issues stemming from years of death, destruction, food insecurity, and displacement.
$20 million over 6 years is America's pocket change.
It has cost taxpayers over $160 million to finance President Trump's golfing weekends. It also cost taxpayers somewhere between 10 and 20 million for President Trump to go to the Super Bowl. Elon Musk's rocket company SpaceX plans to launch 180 rockets in 2025, costing taxpayers $13 billion.
The cost of war.
The United States military have conducted over 24,000 airstrikes in Iraq and Syria at a cost of $13.6 million a day over the course of 1,058 days. If we take the average, we can scare ourselves by thinking about 24 airstrikes every day for 3 years. In total, trillions of dollars were spent on Operations Iraqi Freedom and Inherent Resolve. 1 million or more people were killed both directly and indirectly, and millions more were displaced from their homes.
National security.
The program overview states Iraqi youth, who make up over half of the population, are unable to find jobs in an economy strained by war and corruption, creating vulnerabilities to radicalization. In other words, well-adjusted, educated kids are less likely to grow up to be religious murderers screaming death to all infidels. If you want to learn more about the positive impact of Alan Simsim, here is a link to a nice video. Fair warning, it is a tearjerker in a nice way.
You cried.
I had something in my eye.
Was it tears?
Let's recap. To the people of South Sudan who are on the brink of famine,
Go fuck yourself.
to the people of Iraq and Syria who find it hard to educate their children because their cities have been bombed and many schools have been turned to rubble.
Go fuck yourself.
To the black people of South Africa.
Go fuck yourself.
To the Afrikaner landowners of South Africa, you are 8% of the population yet hold 70% of the land thanks to apartheid laws. You now have a government ran by indigenous blacks and they want their land back. Lucky for you, they are willing to limit what they take to unused property and you will be paid fairly. To you white farmers, the President of the United States of America would like to offer you refuge and an expedited path to citizenship. Hey, what the fuck?
One of these things is not like the others. A new globalist.
Welcome to the fold, Nigel C. I hereby bestow upon you the honorific Recta Lina. Thank you very much for your contribution. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you're feeling generous, follow the Patreon link. Until next time, I am your ally in the fight against disinformation, Greb Kered. Oh!